Well, joining us now are Liberal strategist and principal at Blue Sky Strategy Group, Susan Smith, Conservative strategist Cole Hogan, and former director of NDP Communications, now principal at On Step Strategies, George Sewell. Hello to the three of you.
Hello.
Okay, so listen, the bit more of the backstory here. The Prime Minister says he has confidence in the minister. However, you listen to the Conservative leader, and he's calling for Mr. Ananda Sangri to be fired by the Prime Minister. Can the minister actually stay in the office, considering what a big stumble this is on such an important file?
Well, the Prime Minister has said he's there, so he's there, and it is an important file. It's a compensation program to get assault-style weapons off the streets, and so far they've managed to get 12,000 of them off the streets, and these are military-grade weapons that shouldn't be in neighborhoods, shouldn't be in people's homes, shouldn't be in their gun boxes in their houses, and that's the point, and it's about the safety of Canadians. So what I'm hearing is, in fact, the government's doubled down, and the enthusiasm from caucus to get it moving is even stronger. So it's working. It doesn't touch hunting rifles. Legal, legitimate hunting rifle owners can continue to do that.
But the minister has this big stumble because of this recording, though.
Well,
the program aside, it is at the end of the day a minister who's caught on tape expressing doubt in the worthiness of a program.
I think, as the minister said, he was having a private conversation with a tenant on the front step, and the tenant is someone, I guess, who has a locker full of guns as well, locked up guns in their house. So he got trapped in a conversation that he didn't think, and I think it was his inside voice, maybe not his outside voice, who knows, and he said there was an attempt at humor there. It didn't land well. But the bottom line is the program's working. It's the right thing to do. Assault-style weapons shouldn't be on the streets, and the government's going to continue with the program.
Okay. Is that enough, Cole? Because again, the Conservative leader says he shouldn't stay in the position.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a few things are at play here, and I'll give the minister full credit for going out there and attempting to clean up his own mess. As ineffective as it might be, I imagine that's a bit of a difficult exercise to do. But I think what we've seen here is the minister interacted with someone who thinks the same thing he does about the Liberal gun buyback program, and that it's not going to be effective, especially when we face the reality that the majority of illegal guns come into Canada from the U.S. And I think that there's some skepticism as to whether the minister can address the fact that, well, what he said in private and now he's being held accountable for publicly is the fact that this won't really address crime and public safety. So now that we're seeing that, I think the minister's time in this particular role, maybe he won't be gone today, maybe not tomorrow, but I think in the next shuffle we'll probably see him somewhere else.
Yeah, and underline the fact that when that's what we're hearing, it actually backs up what the opposition's been saying about this program rather than what the government's been saying about this program. George, what do you think? Can Ananda Sangri keep this position?
Well, I think the real question is, can Dominic LeBlanc take on another role? Excuse me. How many times can the Prime Minister shuffle the cabinet and dump more on Dominic LeBlanc? I think that is genuinely a problem. I think so. In situations like this, either the minister has to go or the Prime Minister wears the mistake. And those are the two options. Either the Prime Minister says, I back this person, I own it, or the Prime Minister says this person's fired from their job. And I think, and the other problem with this situation is both Liberals and Conservatives for decades have loved to talk about gun control as a way to beat each other up in election time and try to take each other's votes. And that's largely what it's become, which is part of the problem with this program, is that it's been so slow moving because I think in some ways the Liberals wanted to make a big deal about it rather than actually getting the job done. And so I think that's part of what the minister brought up. I think, if saying that the program's not good enough and don't worry, if you're not going to get the money that you want, I'll pay you back. Well, I know a lot of people back home in North Bay and in Sudbury who I'm sure would like to make sure that the minister will back up what they don't get back in their guns as well. So I think that's the problem. If you're a minister and you express doubt on a program that you're responsible for, I think that is a big deal that isn't something that can be easily swept under the rug.
Yeah, so, okay, and back to you, Susan, then. If he's going to stay in this position, does there need to be some type of strategy to rehabilitate his authority as public safety minister or the validity of this program?
I think the validity of the program is valid. It's working. There are 12,000 assault-style firearms that are off the streets. That's better than having those 12,000 assault-style firearms in people's neighborhoods, right? And I don't know how you can be against a program that tries to get those voluntarily off the streets for people. The minister's performance has been far from stellar.
Does it need rehabilitation, though?
I mean, I would think so. This isn't the first time that we've seen slip-ups from this particular minister. And I think what's going to be very interesting for the Liberal caucus is watching how Mark Carney's PMO deals with this particular minister. Does he have a long leash, or do they shuffle them out sooner than later? That will be a measure of conduct going forward for the rest of this parliament.
Okay, George?
Maybe on that last point, yeah. I mean, I think Justin Trudeau got to the point where he kind of just ignored problems and let them dangle for a long time, which I think piled up on him. You know, Mr. Carney's business style would indicate probably a swift action. Now, if he doesn't do that, that might indicate a change in him trying to figure out the politics of all this. And I think that instead of focusing on some of the bigger things he should be focusing on, this is now the debate on this table, and that, I think, strategically is the real problem.
Okay, so we'll see how that evolves. Listen, I also want to, before we're done today, talk about another topic, and this has to do with Conservative motions and Canadian priorities, because we saw now the Conservatives using another opposition day, their third in this first 2 weeks of the fall session, raising the issue of affordability. Their first one was on bail reform. I wonder if the government risks losing the narrative, because when you look at the polls right now, it is affordability that is top concern. Crime has certainly been a matter of discussion around dining tables across the country. And, you know, not to say it's not valid in its own way, but the Liberals right now still very much about the Donald Trump language. Do they risk losing the narrative when the Conservatives are essentially dead on, the concerns being, the pollsters tell us, are a top concern for Canadians, Susan?
I think the Liberals can walk and chew gum at the same time. They just need to do a better job of it. When it comes to affordability, that's what the Prime Minister is working on when he's working on trade deals and security deals and Buy Canadian and shoring up the defence industry and increasing the markets that we can do business with. That actually has domestic reverb. If you caught Question Period today, and I'm sure many of your viewers will have seen it, you know, there was talk about the school food program that the Conservatives voted against. That's an affordability measure. There's the dental program. That's an affordability measure. The Carney government has already upped the pay for members of the military. That's an affordability measure. Shoring up the economy so people can continue to have jobs and that there's more investment in Canada, those are affordability measures. They need to do a better job of telling that story. And some of those measures take a little bit more time for people. And that's what I recognize is frustrating for people. So they could, I think, walking and chewing gum at the same time is actually happening. They just need to tell the story a little bit better.
Okay, Cole, what do you say?
Yeah, I think there's a few things at play here, because to Susan's point, the Liberals have to do more than one thing at once. I think the Conservatives are right to focus on crime and public safety and bail reform for a couple reasons. This issue, you know, you go across downtown Canada, it's increasing in relevancy for the majority of Canadians, so that's, you know, a hot button issue you always want to be addressing when it comes to safety. The last polling I looked at that we were talking about in terms of who Canadians trust most to deal with these issues, it had Conservatives at 66% to deal with crime and safety, and the Liberals at 17%. So I think they're right to focus on this issue, particularly on bail reform, when so many, you know, violent acts are being committed by repeat offenders. That's something that I think is top of mind for people. For the Liberals, on the other side of this issue, I think they want to continue to focus on Trump because that's what they're most trusted to do. Why wouldn't you keep going back to that well? But you're going to have to do more than one thing at once. And as we see, you know, Carney and the Trump issue fall down to maybe fourth or fifth, where cost of living is up above that, the economy and housing. The Liberals will have to focus on international issues and domestic issues. And we've seen what I think so far is a preference from Carney to focus on the international stuff. And if the domestic issues become more of a concern for Canadians, I think that's where Conservatives have the political edge and the Liberals may be weak.
Okay, you're dying to get in.
Well, I think in some cases, many of the international issues are actually domestic issues. When you build up trade corridors, when you are participating in the broader security discussions, NATO, military, those are domestic issues too, and they do shore up and they do address the affordability issue. And you're right, a prime minister has to be able to walk and chew gum. They have to be able to focus on more than one thing at the same time. But just because the prime minister is internationally, speaking with Australia, England, Spain, Iceland, Denmark over the weekend, those are important relationships for the economy. Pierre Poilievre doesn't have anything else to talk about. He can't do a trade deal. He can't fix tariffs. He can't create jobs or bring in policy to fix the economy. The country decided in April they didn't trust or want him to do that. So Mr. Carney is doing what Canadians asked him to do.
Those are the things on which Mark Carney will be measured, though. Now that the Trump issue and international issues are, you know, falling down, Carney's long-term success will be judged on domestic issues. Like, if you can do all these trade deals or attempt to get one, we haven't seen a lot of progress on that front, you're going to be judged on domestic issues across the country. And if he and his ministers on Carney's side, the Liberal side, can't get that done, maybe we see poll numbers start to shift.
Okay, George?
Yeah, I mean, look, in the same way that Pierre Poilievre has never worn out a pair of work boots, Mark Carney doesn't understand what it's like to wonder how you're going to pay for bread, or if you have to pass up milk this week in order to pay for the can of soup for your kids. He doesn't understand those affordability issues in a fundamental way. And he got away with it in the last election because it wasn't two different issues. Donald Trump was a stand-in for affordability. Donald Trump was a stand-in for our own security, both like internationally, but also just in our own homes. As that becomes less clear, or it kind of runs its course, it comes back to these very basic, how can I afford the bills at the end of the month kind of issues. And I think Mark Carney isn't seen as someone who gets that, because he doesn't. And even today, when he stood up and talked, when he includes dental care, for instance, as one of the things that's going to make life more affordable, meanwhile he's also said he's not going to make provinces that aren't interested in sign deals. It shows that his priorities are not with people's kitchen tables. They are somewhere else. And unless he can somehow make people believe that Donald Trump's the boogeyman again, I think, again, like we said last week, I think it's a real problem for him.
Yeah. Okay. Again, we're gonna have to watch that one. To be fair, when the election was going down and Trump was fading in the election, the Conservatives were going up in numbers. So I think this is something we're gonna have to watch here on the Hill. Susan, Cole, George, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael.